Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be starting off on our back bodies, but I wanted to make sure that each of us has something we can sit comfortably upon later in the practice. And that means that when you sit, your knees will be straight forward of your hips. If you're at all tilted back like this is actually a pressure situation for that low back, and you can't breathe as well. So you should be able to feel that you're right on your sits bones, and that the spine is just easily rising. If you feel that you need your arms to hold yourself up, that's a great indicator that the butt needs to come higher. And remember, at any point, you could set the legs out in a straddle as well if your knees or hips prefer that. But for now, please come to your back body. I had a interesting week at the end of the week last week. I re-aggravated a neck injury vacuuming, right? It's always vacuuming, toothbrushing, snow shoveling. And I'm doing really, really well. But it was such a reminder to me of how those patterns are in our body and they're kind of there to be triggered and what happens when they come up for us. So I'm going to be kind of touching base with the idea of trauma and injury and the kind of how we meet it throughout our practice. And this can apply to physical, it can apply to emotional, and even just sustained, like being busy and kind of on guard. So, let the language kind of land on you, however makes sense for where you're at today. Really grateful you're here. So let's start with 3 sighing breaths to really sink in, gathering a long inhale through the nose and releasing through the mouth. And continue. And the sigh can be just very soft. It might be a because that's just the energy that wants to move. It doesn't have to have a story. Just let the breath happen and let the body move energy. And with each breath, we're always asking, is there more? And that allows us to stay mentally present with the inhale and the exhale. We don't want to rush it. All right. And then after you've taken those 3 breaths, inviting you to just kind of wiggle your body around. So, a way of, again, just releasing any tension, stagnation, kind of grounding. So, I like to sometimes, kind of bang my legs. You can rotate your toes in towards each other and then out. And as you do that, really play with powering down through those quadricep muscles and getting the legs really straight. This is a wonderful release for your legs when you're not on them, they're not bearing your weight. And then also take your arms overhead and reaching for the wall behind. You might roll your wrists. Oh, maybe you've got a good yawn in there, fake or otherwise. And then just let your body settle once more. Throughout our practice, make it comfortable. So when I say settle, like into corpse pose, if you're like, oh, my lower back's a little iffy, bend your knees, right? So at every juncture, our job is, I would say, to meet our body with loving kindness. So as you are ready to join me in more breath attention, turn your attention inward, third eye, like you're looking up behind the center of the forehead. Lightly connect the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth with the rest of the tongue soft. And then invitation to add Ujjayi. Now, if this is new to you and it just builds a bunch of tension, let it go. But I know many of us really value Ujjayi as a way to stay mentally present and kind of deepen that breath cycle. So give it a try if you'd like. Just contract the throat a little bit. And as that breath passes through, it starts making that whooshing sound of waves or wind in the trees. And sometimes it feels really good to do it firmly, like almost like that energy before you kind of at somebody. And sometimes it's valuable to let it become very light, where there's just a little bit contraction in the throat. So play with that as it feels appropriate for you as well. My hope is that Ujjayi is helping you stay aware of the breath And whether you're still in inhale or exhale or finding the pause. So we're going to do just about 3 more breaths, looking for that pause, noticing the transition. If you'd like, you could plug your ears to be more aware of that. Notice if the mind wanders, bring it back. Is there more? And if you plugged your ears, but you can hear me now, notice, if you will, just what that was like for you. Some of us find that very peaceful, a really wonderful tuning inward and turning our attention away from the world. Remember, you could do that anytime during our practice or, in fact, in life off the mat. For now, we're going to take it into our compression and expansion. So on your next exhale, firmly drawing the abdomen down towards the spine, anchoring into the floor, pressing out, out, out. Is there more? You might roll the head side to side to be sure that you're not doing this with your neck. When there's nothing left, soften and allow your body to be breathed. You should feel kind of a spinal curve re-happen. And again, is there more? Get that last little sip, maybe stretch up into the chest. And exhaling compression again. And as we do this, it's a great time to talk to all those core muscles and wake up any, excuse me, that might be kind of just not engaging. Good. Let's do just a couple more like that. Practicing becoming deeply engaged at the core while taking on nothing in the neck. All right. And as you take your next inhale, whenever it comes, go ahead and send those arms overhead like you're reaching for the wall behind. Flex the feet. And then I want to have you turn your palms, just kind of rotate them in space behind you and feel some of the stretch that comes up into your arms. Go ahead and do the same with your feet. I can feel when I flex my feet and turn the toes outward, I can feel that connect all the way up through the IT bands into the hips. If you can't, don't worry. It might just mean you're not as tight as I am this morning. All right, and release. Whew. All right, we're going to bring the right knee into the belly, release wind pose. Both feet are flexed. Now, if you have a hard time reaching your knee, remember you could always take like a strap or a scarf or something and hook it around. Otherwise, try to just maybe use the fingers. We want our shoulders to stay anchored. So it's a nice, easy reach. Hugging that thigh as tight to your body as you can. Extend your left leg as powerfully away from you as you can. So you might feel your heel come off the floor. Good. Breathing here. So you might be feeling some pressure in that right side of the abdomen. We're doing that on purpose. Hopefully it feels good. If not, lessen it. But that's your ascending colon. That's the beginning of our digestion. Let's take another breath. And if you'd care to intensify, add a little sit-up motion, lifting your chest towards the knee like you want to kiss it. Inhaling, release. Good. Keeping the right hand on the knee, let it drop down to the right into your hand. Almost like a reclined tree pose, but you've still got your leg up off the floor. Good. Enjoy a deep breath here, still reaching through that left leg. And as you're ready, cross that right leg over you into spinal twist. Now, for me, often that's just too intense. So I like to bring the second knee up under in what we call embryo pose. Again, check it out in your body. We're looking for what the body can receive. We're approaching it with loving kindness. There's intensity, but it's intensity we can welcome like a good, deep massage. So very importantly here, we're letting the breath impact the body. So, in order for that to happen, you might have to willfully breathe past the resistance of this twisted shape. It's a little difficult. See if you can do it. Make a nice big Buddha belly. You might feel that back arm come away from the floor and then exhaling returns. Let's do one more. If you'd like a little additional leg stretch, hip stretch, straighten that right leg out, maybe into the support of your waiting hand. Oh, and slowly return. Center. Good. We're going to bring that left knee in, right leg extending. Again, shoulder heads are anchored. There's no neck effort here. So adjusting in order to make it as easeful as you can. And what I can notice is that if I really attend to bringing that left knee in more deeply, I can get an additional stretch through the lower right abdomen, especially if I'm engaging that right leg. So just find the subtlety of what's available in your body today and it feels good. Deep breath. Invitation to add a sit-up. If your neck is pretty tight today, I would not add that. Luckily, this is not the position that bothers my neck, or I wouldn't be doing it. And as you're ready, release and come into your, oh, that's right, take your left leg out to the left, not spinal twist quite yet. So this is a nice hip opener. As you're holding that leg a little off the floor with your left hand, make sure that the right side of the body's anchoring. So you're, again, using the core to root down. Deep, deep breath. One more long inhale. Is there more? Is there more? Can you feel it in your back body also? And exhaling now, crossing for spinal twist and potentially adding the second leg bent for embryo pose. Totally up to you. And I forgot to mention it on the other side, but one of my favorite things to do in spinal twist is to really explore the range of motion in the shoulder. You might even circle it across the body, but for sure, sweeping a little up by the ear, down by the hips. You can even rotate the palm again, forward and back. And deep attention to breath. Let's do one more willful inhale, breathing past the resistance. And you can add sighing breaths throughout the practice as you like. And come on back to center, placing the feet for bridge pose. And we want them maybe 6 inches apart, what we call hip width, hip distance. Upper arms anchoring, shoulder heads drawing down. Long inhale. Exhale, pressing the hips up. Now we're going to be playing with bridge a little bit here. And so I'm going to bring your attention to a few different things. One is, can you anchor through both the mounds of the big toe and the pinky? So a sense of real equality. And then also keeping a little inner thigh engagement so that the legs aren't splaying away. Additionally, I want you to play for a moment, kind of rising and sinking a little bit with the hips to see if you can find a place of being upwardly lifted without the glutes clenched. We want them there, but not like, "Urgh." We do squeeze our glutes really strongly sometimes just to release tension out of the muscle, but we don't want to train them to always be tight. That can put pressure on our sciatic nerve and other things. So you might even just take your own hand to your glutes, specifically the glute max, that bigger lower part of the butt, and just see if they can be awake and supportive without being as hard as possible. What is that like in your body? Good. And as you're ready, you'll come slowly out of bridge, one vertebra at a time. Good. Knees to belly. We're going to come from here into what I call half straddle. And so I just like bringing one heel in towards the butt. I come holding that knee for support while straightening the other leg into my hand. Again, this is a great place to flex, point, roll the ankles, and to feel what's happening in your legs when they are not supporting you. Is it hard to get your legs straight? If so, you need to wake up probably this quadricep and the whole kind of front of the thigh. I usually do it by thinking about pushing more firmly out through the heel. And some people prefer this with their hands on the inside of the knee. Outside, it's totally up to what just feels easeful and allows you to enjoy here. Let's do a couple more. When was the last time your feet were wider than hip width in your life this week? All right, and bring the heels together, butterfly. So they might be here at the butt or on the floor in a more relaxed or passive butterfly, all right? So whatever feels like just a nice opening that you can welcome. Join me here for a couple more breaths. Nice deep inhale. This has the opportunity to help relax this deep psoas muscle and the hip flexors, both of which get really tight from sitting too much and actually can create a lot of kind of internal tension too. We can get more anxious and so on. So this says it's okay to soften. And when you feel complete with that position, come on out. And we're going to come into one more bridge. We're going to do bridge with leg extensions. So if having your butt up a certain height starts to build back tension or knee tension, come down a little bit. I'd rather have you do less and have it feel good. So similarly, when you're ready, just lift one foot off the floor a little bit, what I call a hover, and then the other. And if it's feeling great and you want a little more, then you'll extend the leg through the heel. But if you do that advancement, and again, your back starts to tighten up or whatever, come back to the foot hover. I notice in the foot hover, it's easier for me to stay relaxed in my neck and upper back. So that's a great feedback loop from my body. Like, oh, maybe this is a good place to be. And a slow, slow release down. Good. One more time. Knees to belly. And I'd love to do a few what I call yoga sit-ups. Now, we also often practice robot or discombobulated robot, as I call it. And so if you're familiar with that and you'd prefer that, go for it. That's almost always a little easier on the neck. But I want to show this option as an alternate too, because people have hip knee things that make robot sometimes not feel as good. So if you're doing the yoga sit-up with me, definitely have the hands behind the head. And you're going to take a very long inhale. Curious, is there more? Exhale, create your compression breath, that deep anchoring downward. Add your pelvic floor, and then just see if it feels natural to let the upper back come a little way off the floor. So I'm just a couple of inches, and I'm letting my head rest back into my hands. So I'm really doing very little neck work. Emptying, emptying, keep squeezing down through the belly. Inhaling, slow release. If you're in robot, remember deep inhales in the neutral. Always, always get that full breath in. Exhaling, anchor through that low back, pelvic floor. Keep drawing down and let that drawing down be the thing that lifts the upper back off the floor. And continue. We're going to do just a few more like this. If it's too much, just come into compression and expansion again. I found that if I do compression and I give it my full attention and I really empty, I can get as sore as if I've done a bunch of sit-ups. So we want to wake those muscles up in a way that doesn't bother the other parts of the body, neck, knees, hips. In fact, you might practice smiling a little bit, staying soft in the tongue, the lips, the jaw, the eyes. Last one. Ujjayi. Is there more? Is there more? And release. Awesome. We're going to come up to seated. You might spinal rock like I just did, or otherwise just very gently roll to one side and press up. And that's almost always going to be better if you've got something going on with low back, neck, and so on. So we're going to come into our table pose, a little cow-cat action here. And I'm going to ask you to very specifically today let the tailbone lead. So as you begin, you tilt the tailbone back and then let the rest of the spine follow into that arch of what we call cow pose. Remember, you're not looking forward. I don't want to shorten the back of the neck or compress any of those vertebrae there. Exhaling, now tuck the tailbone. Letting the head go wherever is easeful, usually just kind of hanging downward. Is there more? Inhaling, lead with the tailbone, tilting back and up. And as we do this a few more times, I'm asking you to really tune in. What's happening in your spine? Where is it fluid? Where does it feel tight, crunchy, thick? Asking of the breath, is it complete? Is there more? The breath is the most important part of our practice and, frankly, of being alive. And the quality of the breath can tell us, I am well, I am whole, I'm safe. Conversely, it can tell us that something needs fixing. I'm not safe, something's wrong. So this beautiful, slow, deep breath attention that you're doing right now is really allowing for relaxation through all of your muscle tissue and your nervous system. Super powerful. Last time here in cat back, hold, and inviting you to stretch side to side and make it organic. You might go to one side and then kind of want to press your hips back a little bit, getting a deeper stretch through the waistline. Maybe your body says, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do some full circles, left and right. How's that feeling? If you're circling in one direction, check out the other direction. And if you can't be on knees, remember you could do a standing version of this too, with hands on your thighs. All right. And then we're going to do a little movement back into child's pose, which is a pose we go to frequently in yoga, and we often use it in our flow practice in between flows. But I want to have you check out something today. So make sure your knees are a little bit wider than the hips. And before you send your butt back to your heels, I want you to think, if you will, about kind of taking your abdomen towards the thighs. So my butt's going back as I do that, but without the goal to get my butt to my heels. So just nice and slow. And this in general is going to be a really healthy alignment for the spine. We're not ending up in a big tailbone tuck, which can put pressure on that low back if we stay there for very long. And a lot of us sit like that. So that's a part of the body that's often kind of stressed anyway. If you're able to extend the arms and you're resting on your forehead, great. Remember, you can put a block under your forehead as well. And if this is all too much, whenever we go into child's pose in practice, you would want to consider ragdoll instead. And you could even do that with elbows on the thighs if you need to. Either position that you're in, let the abdomen expand with breath against your thighs or into that space between. All right, nice work. On another long inhale, bring it into your back body, massage the spine. And on your long exhale, tuck the tailbone and let it bring you up again into your table pose. So we're going to do a little more core work here. And if this is hard on your wrists, go on to fists like so, with the thumbs facing straight forward. And first, just check that your spine feels neutral. If you're not sure, by the way, and I often am not, take your head a little up and a little down and just feel where you can feel strong and no discomfort. Nice long line from tailbone to crown. Nice breath, and just release your right hand, left knee for a moment. I'm going to ask you to hold here. And what we want is all this core musculature doing the work of counterbalancing. Nothing in the neck, tongue, eyes. Good. Let's switch sides. Left hand and right knee lifting. All right. And now we're going to do extending. So still in spine neutral, strong core. Inhaling, right arm and left leg extending for front and back wall. Exhaling, come back as slowly as you can. and other side. Inhaling left arm, right leg. Now again, if being on your knees is bothersome, you could be doing some nice standing postures where you're at least releasing your limbs from neutral. Always opposites. And so I ask you to notice when you are coming into the balance portion of these poses, which muscles take over. If it's your neck and your trapezius muscles up there kind of by the shoulders, we need to retrain that, and it can be challenging. But one of the best ways to do that is, again, reconnect with those muscles that you woke up in compression and expansion or robot yoga sit-ups, and then kind of, whenever possible, tell your neck to go what I call kind of weeble wobble loosey goosey. Just give it very small little movements that tell it to not participate. All right, we're going to do one more round, and I'm going to ask you to add a little thing here. So next time you're extended, then just take your limbs a little out to the side. Yeah, it just adds a little more intensity. And come on back. Other side. Remember, when I offer intensification, it doesn't mean you have to take it. It's a chance to explore, does my body want that today? How's that feel? And release. Good. We're going to come onto our feet. If you're comfortable in downward facing dog for a little bit, go ahead and use that pose. Send your hips up and back. And then we're going to all end up in ragdoll, which is essentially my way of saying forward fold, but with the knees bent. We're not trying to straighten them here. Check that your feet are basically 2 fist widths apart. If they're wider, bring them in and kind of hug the fists. Good, and see if you can kind of drape that belly onto the thighs. And here is a challenging place to breathe. So we're going to take 3 very thoughtful, intentional breaths. You can always kind of lift the head and chest a little bit if that feels good to get in more breath. And exhaling, let it go and give in to gravity. Ideally, have your weight in the full footbed. You might shift a little forward and back to notice where it is. One last breath here. Lovely. Now drop the butt, so I'm staying hinged at that hip. Then I'm using the powerful thighs to press up. Pause, tune into your breath and into being upright. We're going to come right into a pose that I often do at the end of practice because I actually think it's nice to do it sometimes with fresh legs, and that's our tree pose. So I usually have us bring our feet together for starters, big toes touching, other toes spreading, because we want our foundation to be as broad as possible, right? Then we feel secure and stable. To add to that, squeeze those thighs like you've got something between that you don't want to blow away. And I want you to just pause and feel that for a moment. Feel that deep squeeze. You might not stay that engaged for the whole pose, but we want to wake up these inner thigh muscles so that we can keep our power going down through the inner foot. So right now, you can even check out, see if you can anchor through the big toes and lift the others. Yeah, then anchor them again. So as you take your right foot into kickstand, keep that power in the inner line of your left foot. So if balance is a challenge area for you anyway, or you're protecting your ankles or knees, you might just stay in kickstand. Otherwise, slide it on up to the calf. Can you flare your toes out, little yoga toes? Just bringing all of your alignment all the way to your feet. And then if you'd like, adding arms. They might be out in a big hug emoji, an open-hearted welcome to breath, to prana, life force, whatever blessings. Maybe you're stretching high, getting that nice side body stretch. Some people enjoy coming into steeple hands here, so palms touching and all of the fingers interweaving except for the index and thumb. And if you're doing that, you're letting your shoulder blades rise up and you're squeezing your head with your arms. You could also be like a tree in a storm, a gentle storm. Most importantly, as you lose balance a little bit, and I hope you do, close your eyes if it's too easy. As you lose balance a little bit, can you get these core muscles to do the job and not the neck? Give it a try. A couple more breaths. Soft tongue, soft gaze, either eyes closed for the extra challenge or open drishti gaze. Whew. And when you're ready to switch, we'll come out. I like kind of flexing, rolling again through the ankles here. Feet together. That first little thigh squeeze, creating your tree trunk. And then if you'd like, left foot coming into kickstand. So I can notice sometimes one leg is weaker than the other or just not igniting as much. If you can discern that in your body, that might explain if you've got better balance on one side than another. A lot of people think balance is an innate thing, but it's usually more that these muscles are or are not working to anchor the way we need them to. For that extra challenge, come up into the foot on the calf. Check the neck is easy, little weeble wobble. And whatever arms on this side. Breathing. So our ultimate skill as yogis is in training ourselves to breathe slow, deep, and wide into the body, really no matter what's happening, whether we're falling out of a pose or we're deeply muscularly engaged like we will be in a few moments in forearm plank, right? This is the practice. Remember, if you're stuffy, you can always breathe through the mouth. Otherwise, slow, deep, and wide through the nose. See if you've got 3 more. Make the balance part a little more challenging. Check on your neck. Maybe smile, even if you're falling over. And release. Well done. If you had a little fun with that versus getting upset with yourself or me, great. All right, we're coming down into forearm plank. Now, I usually come from my belly, but I want to remind you, you can always come to table, down onto your forearms, kind of tuck the spine for now, tuck the tailbone as you step back with your feet. One of the things that I like about coming from the belly is that you can come onto knees right away. So if you're trying to do less intensity, your back prefers this, go for it. You can still get an incredible abdominal effort. So as you are ready, come into your version, either knee down or on the feet. If you're on your feet, once again, really talk to those fronts of the thighs, the quadriceps, to get them to press to the sky. If our back feels weak or awkward, it's usually because either that's not happening or our feet aren't rolling towards each other. A better way to say that, I should say, is our inner thighs aren't working. We need our inner thighs to squeeze so that the feet are in neutral. If there's any little bit of rolling out or collapse, it's going to go to our back. All right, you're probably ready to come out by now for a little relaxed breath. Turn to one side. Let's do a couple more deep belly breaths there. You can always add some nice hip rocking. They've shown actually that just this movement is really helpful for taking us into our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest. All right. Invitation to return to forearm plank. If a little voice in your head is like, oh, but I need to stay where I am, then you can listen to that. Otherwise, we're going to build a little more heat here. Shoulder heads are anchored, neck is soft, and in your own time, either knees down or on the feet. And then I want us to find as much spine neutral as we can here. I often have been teaching you to kind of hyper tuck to find that core to wake it up and be there. But then we want to return to our natural spinal curves. So think about reaching from the tailbone to the crown, or if you're on your feet, from the heel to the crown. Just get long and let your body settle in to its natural space. If you're quivering, don't worry. That's actually not a bad sign. It's usually a great sign that you're waking up all those muscles that you're working on. Can you breathe inside the quiver? loving approach to every bit of intensity. One more. And release. Turn your head to the other side. Is there more? All right. Bringing the hands now back by the chest. And actually, I'd like you to kind of hover your hands initially and just squeeze the elbows in and shoulders down. So we're preparing for Cobra, but we want to get, again, the beautiful alignment, no wings, no shrugs. Then place the hands, anchoring your pelvic triangle, pubic bone and hip bones. Inhale, extend, and exhale, return. I'm going to ask you to go very slow here and really observe what's happening in the glutes, the low back, your neck, of course. The neck is staying neutral, so I'm actually looking at my mat. I like to say, pretend there's a love note there, and someone wrote you something magnificent, maybe a little poem, a little haiku, a little message. You rock. If it feels appropriate on this last one, you might add a little engagement with the arms. We call this King Cobra. It doesn't mean you're straightening the arms. It just means you're adding a little power there. And release. Turn the head to the side again. Invitation to bend the knees and just very gently windshield wiper the feet side to side. You don't want to like wing them because that's a lot of weight. And if your back is sensitive, you might notice that. All right. So staying in this position, whichever direction your face is facing, take that same knee and bring it up and out to the side. So I've got my face to the right. I'm bringing my right knee up. Inviting you to take a deep inhale, and on your exhale, invitation to engage the glute downward. And if you feel, again, any nerve or pinching or something, don't do it. But otherwise, it should just feel like kind of a good massage, a good release. So it's very similar to an assisted position that we do in Thai yoga massage. So you can squeeze and release. Good. I'm going to offer a little add-on before we go to the other side. So in this add-on, you would reach your other arm. So in this case, my left arm kind of above my head. So I can kind of settle my head onto it. You don't have to do that, but it's a lot more comfortable. And then invitation to place the right hand, if you've got your right knee, onto the floor and just sort of open your chest towards the wall. I'm just kind of pulsing. So I'm taking some nice inhale and exhaling, pressing a little bit. Good. And I want you to notice how this feels. This is a lead up to a stretch we're going to be doing in a moment. Okay. But for now, we're going to come out and do the other side. So you're going to release that leg back. I usually have to kind of use my supporting hand to make it easy. Okay. And so now the other leg coming out to the side there, turning your face to face it. And with breath, briefly engaging the glute down and releasing. So some of us might even get some spinal adjustment when we're doing this. Yay. That's free. No extra charge. All right. And invitation to add that little rotation. So I'm going to reach my right arm up so I can settle my right temple or cheek onto it. My left hand, same as my left knee that's bent, is going to help me rotate my torso that direction, just opening it. And again, there's no goal here to get a certain distance. It's an exploration, just feeling some stretch. How is that rotation for you today? And when you are ready, release. Good. We're going to press back to child's pose or ragdoll. Give that low back a nice counter shape. All right. When you're ready, we're going to return to our bellies here. So there are a lot of ways to do this pose. And the most important thing is that if your joint ever feels unhappy, particularly your shoulder joint or your spine, that you find a way to make it happy if that just means not doing the pose. But there's also a wall version of the stretch that I'll show in just a moment. But otherwise, you're going to take your right arm out to your right side. So it's 90 degrees. Palm is active. I'm awake. I know where I am in space. I'm really paying attention to that back shoulder. And I'm going to just roll a little onto my right hip if I can. Now, if you go onto the right hip and it's just too much, then instead kind of come out a little bit and bring your left knee forward, right? So it's basically like we were a moment ago. Otherwise, both legs are straight and you're just rocking onto that right hip. Now, some of us will get plenty of a stretch here into the right chest and shoulder. Some might enjoy adding a little extra by taking your top leg, in this case my left leg, behind, planting my foot kind of behind my right knee somewhere. And it doesn't matter exactly the angle, it's just about getting enough support that your body can enjoy this stretch. Enjoy another couple breaths. So the wall version would be having, in this case, the right hip towards the wall, placing my right hand behind, left foot is forward, so I'm in a nice athletic stance and I'm rotating away. All right. One of the benefits of the wall stretch is that you can then also play with other angles. You can have that hand up higher than 90 and down. When you're ready to come out and do the other side, please, nice and slow, roll back to center. Whew, and release that right arm. Give it a love up if it needs some movements. Then we're going to take our left arm out behind. Shoulder head anchors. So we want to make sure we're doing this pose not from a shrug. Good. And so initially I'm just going to play with rocking back onto my left hip, outer thigh. Notice, is this side different? Maybe you want to add that foot behind and that feels good. Or maybe you could enjoy the stretch more if you bring your right knee out to your right in that little frog pose we were practicing earlier. Okay, so up to you. And one of the things we're looking for here is a stretch kind of into our pectoral muscles, where a lot of us get really tight and it can be hard to find that stretch. So you don't want to just feel something, again, awkward in the joint. If you're feeling a little stretch into your bicep tendon, that would be normal or common and actually useful. Again, as long as it's not a joint pull. Good. See if you've got a couple more breaths in there. And come on out. Love up that left arm and shoulder. And then we're going to be coming once again onto our feet at the back of the mat. So if you want to spend some time in child's pose, go for it. Otherwise, downward facing dog. Couple of nice active breaths here. Really enjoying this shoulder stretch. If you're in child's pose, you can still activate the arms forward and get a little bit of that same opening. Bring your feet about fist width apart, or hip width apart, 2 fists. And then slowly walk the hands back to the feet. Ragdoll, lay your chest on the thighs. You might give your head a little yes shake, a little no shake. Again, nothing vigorous. When you come on up, please, again, drop the butt. Spine is nice and long. And come on up. We're going to step sideways on our mat, 5-pointed star or straddle. So in straddle, our feet are parallel. I want you to connect with your feet again. See if you can place the big toe in the mound of the big toe, and then spread the other toes. And let's just hold here a moment as we expand our arms, 5-pointed star, and just feel the rooted power of this. If this bothers ankles or anything, join us in doing a mountain version of it. Feet right underneath your hips. All right. If you're comfortable where you are, then just change the arms. We're going to sweep one arm up, looking at it if that feels good, otherwise looking down, and switch. So we're really getting into our side body here, whether you're in straddle legs or mountain. We're going to do this a few more times, kind of adjusting it. So inhaling up and then seeing if you can go a little further. And exhale slowly down. Other side, inhaling, arm up, and a little further. Couple more, one more each side. Awesome. I hope you were breathing into those ribs. We're going to fold in our straddle here. Same principle, folks. I don't want my head to make the journey first. I'm going to bend my knees. My butt's going to go out behind. I'm going to lay my belly towards those thighs and then drape myself. Then you can let the head go towards the floor. Good. Go ahead and walk those feet in a little bit. And if it feels appropriate in your body, we're going to do like a little cat back, but also kind of straightening the legs a little bit. It doesn't matter if they ever get straight. So as you're ready, inhale, drop the butt. Exhale, cat back. Nice core, pressing with the legs. Good. We don't do a lot of pressing with the legs, this kind of power stance in daily life. And it's actually really helpful for releasing some of the tension we get in our hamstrings and stuff. Remember, you can be doing little miniature versions of this, right? Hands on thighs, if that's where you're comfortable today. And one more. Option to drop the butt and come up right away, or drop the butt and pause. So we're in a little bit of a squat, right? If that's too much, come up all the way or part way. Can turn the feet out a little bit here, actually. Sorry about that. I just want you to say hello to these thighs. So whatever version you're working, tuning into the thighs, saying hello, inviting them to do good work, maybe quivering a little bit. You can come out whenever you want, right? There's no forced hold. Let's see if you can just briefly hang out with me with goddess arms. So I'm going to take my elbows into a 90-degree angle. If that's too much, bring them down, but otherwise right there. So again, you might be up quite high and just doing little pulses. This is a nice way to wake up all these muscles and the connections around the knee joint. And as you are ready, take one more deep breath. Take it right down into your belly, your low back. A reminder you are well and whole and strong. Nice. Whew. Maybe notice your heart rate. It's amazing how much work that actually is. All right, we're going to come to the front of the mat. Hands on hips for just a moment. We're coming into mountain, and I remind you, you want those feet about 2 fist widths apart. And before we come into any other alignments, I just want you to have your hands on your hips and briefly send your tailbone back. It's an intentional little arch there. And then briefly swing it through neutral and then tuck a little bit. Do that a few times, and what I'm hoping you can notice is that neutral, our legs can be straight and we should feel very little discomfort. There's a little bit of an arch or a natural curve. But that for many of us, once we tilt the tailbone back, the knees are going to bend and there's pressure in the back. And that once we tuck the tailbone, it's also going to create pressure in other places. For me and most people, it'll come into that kind of upper back. Right? So I want you to please explore that until you feel kind of like you're awake to what's going on, and then find your neutral. We're going to add jet airplane arms, palms facing forward, shoulder heads anchoring down. And I want you to observe, please, if you're willing, your whole front thigh. And we want them to be awake without clenched, kind of like we were working on the glutes in bridge. So like I can feel mine kind of want to tighten up and I'll tell it to relax. And yours may be less jumpy than that, but just see what you've got. And then staying awake, but still calm in that lower body. I'm going to ask you to turn your palms towards your hips and add a little pulsing. We're going to do bellows breath. If that doesn't work for you, just keep your slow, deep, and wide. Otherwise, rapidly in and out through the nose. And it's as if you're pressing kind of a little beach ball or something. Press, press, press. Yeah, awesome. And as you're making that pulsing breath, try to have it come from the abdominal movement, not from like pushing with your head and your neck. See if you can do about a half a dozen more. Sounds like we're pumping up a bicycle tire. And then a slow, long inhale, palms rising out and up to whatever height feels good. And I'm going to ask you to spend a moment, in fact, up there. Where does it feel good in your upper back and shoulders to be? Nice deep breath. And slowly, palms face down and float. Good. Bringing the hands around the neck in a little loving collar, as I like to think of it. Fingertips are touching at the back, but not clasped. And we're just providing a little support for the head to move on top of that collar of hands. Oh, yeah. And like I said, you might get some free chiropractic adjustments here. Nice and slow, the way you like them. Sometimes it feels good to add a little pressure with one hand. You can do kind of a little tractioning. And this is a great way to explore not just your neck, but how much it connects down into the upper back, which we tend to forget that the things that connect here go all the way down. And then when you're done with that, take your feet, if you would, a little wide. So I've got a nice wider stance. And we're going to do a little standing hip pump, adding the arms. So I'm going to inhale and drop my butt down. Maybe it's just 1 inch. Maybe you're going into a full squat. I'm going to reach my arms forward and then exhaling, I'm going to pull back like I've got a strap or a TheraBand there that I'm drawing back from in front of me. Slow, deep, and wide. Inhaling, exhaling. No effort in the neck or upper back. I shouldn't say there's no effort in the upper back because you're actually getting a big effort through here now when you draw back. Just no shoulder hiking is what I mean. Attention on our knees, of course. What are they experiencing? Is it good work? Is it too much? And on the alignment of your pelvis and low back. Again, I want to feel good work. Maybe feel those glutes working as you rise up, feeling that nice abdominal strength as you pull back. Let's do 3 more. Is there more? Ujjayi. And when you are complete, nice, just let it go. Roll ankles, roll wrists. So this is a really simple movement that we just did that would be great if you could do it throughout your day if you're doing a lot of seated, all right? We're going to come into some lunging, and I'm going to specifically offer a knee dip that should help stretch also through the quads. Again, you can make this as low intensity as you'd like. You can keep hands on hips. You could actually be holding onto a countertop or a wall to do some of what we're doing, and that would actually help from a balance standpoint. I want you to feel stable enough that you can enjoy the stretch, all right? Wherever we are, our hip bones are straight forward. Again, feet hip width apart. These headlights want to stay absolutely forward. So I'm going to take my right foot back in a lunge and then just slowly dip that right knee. And I'm not in the longest lunge I can absolutely get in here. If I want to deepen it, sometimes it's easiest just to take the front foot and scooch it forward and then play with the dip. If you found something good that you can welcome in its intensity, hang out there, breathe into it. And hang out there doesn't mean it's frozen, that you're not making any movements. It's just that you're staying in the pose. Maybe you want to add arms. Hello. All right. Invitation to come all the way down to that back knee, if that works in your body. If not, return to mountain and do a few standing hip pumps. Otherwise, down on that back knee, big inhale, reaching forward through the hips, forward through the ribs, leaving the head neutral unless looking up feels good. And I'm going to invite you to release out to downward facing dog. Again, you might be in standing hip pump instead. And step back. Those of you who are hungry for dog series, this would be a great place to put that into your practice. Otherwise, the rest of us are going to make our way to the front of the mat. Really thoughtful about, again, how we hinge in and out of our folds, right? Pause, notice what you've created here in mountain. We're going to take the other leg back in the lunge. I've stepped back maybe, 2.5, 3 feet, not necessarily the farthest or deepest that I can. So I'm going to do a couple of dips there. See what I got. Maybe I want more. We'll see. Again, I'm looking for a great stretch through that front leg, through the front of that back leg, I should say, without a bunch of pressure or pull through the sacral triangle and NSI joints. So if you feel any kind of awkward pressure there, I would say make your stance smaller so that there's less opening and space between the thighs, and you can keep more stability. This is your exploration. This is your own loving, deep massage that you're giving to those legs that serve you so well. They are amazing, everything that they do. If it feels appropriate, go ahead and come down onto that back knee and perhaps add arms. Keep adjusting the stretch to be just what you want, just what you're craving. An invitation to either return to your mountain and standing hip pump, or one more time here, downward facing dog. I'm going to do a little movement, upward dog to downward dog. You could do full dog series here if you'd like. If you want to join me in upward dog, it's you come forward just like you would to plank, really activate those thighs, and just let then the pelvis suspend downward as you open your heart forward from the heels. Same principles as plank, thighs squeezing into the sky. Twice more. Inhaling. Is there more? Last time. You could do a knee down version. Always, of course, just like in plank. And then I'd like to invite each of us in our own version of pigeon for our nice hip release. And so for some of you, it's going to be just bringing that right knee behind the right wrist. If you've got any lower back instability, if you've got knees or ankles that are kind of, please join me instead in reclined pigeon. And sometimes we just don't know until we get onto the mat, right? The number of times I've heard people say that, they're like, wow, I had no idea that blah, blah, blah. So this is why we go slow and we do it with breath. I'm going to cross my right ankle onto my left thigh, and I'm going to bring the whole deal towards my chest. If you can't do that, you can keep your other foot on the floor and hug the knee and let that be your practice. Otherwise, you could also use a strap to kind of get a hold of it. Once you've got that knee as tight to your chest as you can, again, just like we did in release wind, really close, big belly breaths, then go a little to your left. And then send some breath on in there. We get a lot of compression in this part of the body, the glute and hip area, just again, mostly from sitting too much. Breathing, loving it up with your breath, creating space with your breath. And always kind of evolving, making it organic, finding out if there's a subtle adjustment to the angle that just makes it, again, exactly what you need today. And don't ever let me rush you out. When you feel ready to switch, bring your floor foot back so it's a nice, safe, and stable release. Left ankle onto right thigh. Feet are flexed. That helps stabilize the knee. And drawing deeply towards your chest here. Ready, a little to the right. So and I can point out that a really nice stretch like this, but that you might do if you're, for example, at the office or something, and you just don't have time to get down on the floor or that bothers your knee, is actually just doing a seated version like this and just playing with that opening. It's kind of interesting because if you place your hand on the glute of the knee that you've got bent, which you can't do when you're hugging your knees, but if you do this when you're seated, and you wing, kind of flap the wing of that knee up and down, you can feel all the movement that happens through here, right? All these external rotators, piriformis. So just start to kind of see that space that you're working with the stretch as kind of all this interwoven fabric, and you're just allowing more flexibility, more movement, getting anything that's kind of frozen or stuck to release and work together. And when you are complete with both sides, I'd like to ask you to come again into your version of bridge. And your version today might be that super active, you're pressing your hips as high as you can go and hanging out there with breath. Or it might be just a light pulsing, a little bit off the floor and then back down, or kind of pulsing at the upper end. Either way, attention to the anchoring of the whole footbed, inner thighs working a little bit. No effort from neck and upper back. I swear, 20 plus years of this practice, and I still have to remind my neck and trap muscles to not participate in poses that they aren't needed, but they want to get involved. So does bridge feel different than when we began our practice? I hope so. Maybe in myriad ways. All right, and I'm going to close with a couple more things that kind of get into our center body. So when you're complete, just lay comfortably, whether it's with knees bent or all the way flat, and we're going to do some abdominal pumping. Gather a long inhale, slow, deep, and wide. Exhale, empty the breath, hold it out, and begin to draw your belly towards your spine or the floor, and then push it out. In and out until you need to breathe. Oh, I love sighing breaths in between here. Again, sighing breaths tell the amygdala, the alarm center of our brain, everything's fine. And this center body here, our gut, is so often where we take in the message of like, not safe, not okay. So this combination is just wonderful. Let's do a couple more. Inhaling. Is there more? Exhaling, emptying, and beginning that drawing in and pressing out. I think of it as, see how skinny I am? Big Buddha belly. And if you're really attentive, you might hear sounds happening inside, right? Because you're moving everything that's on top of and connected to your spine. So see if you can even get a sense of what's happening interiorly. When you need to breathe, take a couple neutral breaths, and we'll come in for one last round. Remember, you can do this much more vigorously or gently. Just any little fluctuation here is useful. And then as you're ready, please take your hands onto your belly. And we're just going to do a little circle. So if you started with your hands, say, on your right hip bone, and you go up to your right ribs, and then across to your left ribs, and down to your left hip. That's the direction that we'd like to go. And this is, again, the direction of digestion, ascending colon, descending colon. And we know that just this gentle touch, especially if you can do it on your skin, is really powerful and healing. But that also we can explore a little bit with some pressure if you feel safe doing so. And so I'm going to just kind of take my fingers to the inside of that right hip bone and kind of press towards my center line and then also towards the floor a little bit, or my back body. And I'm just sort of using my fingers to, I think of it as if this was a rim of a bread bowl that you're making bread dough, that you're now kind of bringing the bread dough away from the rim of the bowl as you make your circle. And if you've completed one circle already, consider if you want to maybe do another circle and just go maybe a little deeper and kind of hold your pressure in a few places where it feels like the body wants you to. Noticing what comes up, what kind of sensation it is. Is it, heavy or deep? Is it cool or hot? Zingy? One of the powerful things that we know about the body and brain connection, now that they've been able to study it more, is that every thought that we have has a physical impact, or kind of response in the body. But that also, anytime we witness what's happening in the body, that in of itself creates evolution. So it's a part of what I see as healing of any kind, or finding a healthy place, helping our body rebalance. So even just, if we have discomfort in our belly, for example, just placing the hands there and going, oh, hello. And this is where I'm returning to the idea that I introduced at the beginning, and we're going to kind of end with here in a little meditation, but is the idea of a loving kindness. I think of it as a loving approach to our self observation, what we call swadhyaya in yoga. And so, if when your body has something ouchy or intense, your response is to be irritated with the body, I invite you to notice that and know that you're not unusual, but that is something we can choose to evolve, and that it can really change how fast we heal, and even what we learn from the process, which is really cool. So I'm going to be offering this meditation. I'm going to be seated, but you might choose, if you're laying down right now, in fact, to just stay there. Maybe you want to cover with a shawl or something. It can be really nurturing and soothing. And I know that many of us have heard loving kindness meditations over time. I've shared a couple of different versions. And I want to encourage you to understand that this should be yours. In other words, you're supposed to pick the language that really feels right. So I'm offering you some things to try on, but ultimately, if you like loving kindness meditation, kind of play with and find the words that work for you. So I'm going to place my hands on my body. I've got one on my chest and one on my abdomen. Just going to take a few breaths into that contact of my healing hands. Noticing my heartbeat, inviting my neck to be soft. If you're laying down, it could feel really good to just roll your head side to side. So as I offer the words out loud, you would repeat them in your own mind. You're also welcome to say them out loud if you prefer. So in the first version, I'm speaking the loving kindness to myself. So saying I and me, and you would do the same so that you're speaking to yourself. And in the second version, I'm offering it up to another person, someone I'm calling you. And I like to do that to an individual, someone particular, perhaps for whom I've had concern, maybe even someone with whom I have difficulty, but I can't resolve stuff right now. And then the third version is something I offer on out to a larger population. So it could be a group of people for whom I have great concern. It could be all of humanity. It could be Mother Earth. And I know that there are a lot of things that are on our radar right now in this world for which we have concern, a lot of people for whom we have concern. So you might find that you want to repeat this loving kindness meditation and kind of try on different versions of who you offer it to as well and how that feels. All right. So tuning in deeply, turn your gaze up and in towards that third eye. See deeply inside your own body and touch and breath. And repeat after me when you're ready. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Breathe into that. You could also notice if any of those words felt particularly poignant for you at this time. And then holding in your mind's eye an individual who you may want to offer this meditation to. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And if you'd like, now directing our meditation towards a larger group of people, beings. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Again, there are many, many ways that you can play with the language. You could say, may I have happiness, or I am happy, I am healthy, I am safe. So trying on some of those things. What I notice is that my desire to see others happy, healthy, safe is so strong, right? So poignant. And I think when we witness people in turmoil and pain and suffering, and we don't feel that we have a particular way to act or help, that in of itself can be a form of suffering for us, because I think we're all drawn towards kindness and helping and healing. Like that's our natural state. We want wholeness for others as well as ourselves. So I notice that this meditation is one that I often turn to when I feel that kind of helplessness around a particular scenario or kind of suffering. Notice also if perhaps this is the most kind attention that you've given your body and being in a little while, and if it feels really good. I thank you so much for being here at the mat today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Namaste. May you move through your day with grace and ease, and I hope to connect with you again soon. Thank you so much.